right. Hey, go ahead on the tag and share. Let's get everybody in.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, let's get everybody in. So listen, we are excited about the show. Max Hurley.
Amen. And now here's your host,
Want to say good afternoon and once again welcome to, that's right, it's the Greg James Community Show right here over Hallelujah 95.3. And listen, we are excited about today's show. We are we're getting ready to have an amazing conversation in the studio. You know who's here with me today? None other than the Conscious Chick. So how are you today?
That's
New hairstyle. My goodness. I couldn't wait to see you come in. I saw the post. I couldn't wait.
Listen, it's summertime and this is some hot hair.
Okay.
It's hot, y'all. Listen. I think it's a blonde girl summer, so you're gonna see maybe a little bit darker hue, but you gonna see this blonde.
We got our highlights.
Oh, wow.
Highlights during the summer. That's right.
Okay, wonderful.
That's right.
Well, listen, we got an exciting show. Let's talk before we dive into the show and introduce to the community our guests. Listen, I need you to go ahead on the tag, share. Let's get everybody in on all of our platforms. Certainly, if you're in your car, you want to brace yourself. If you're at your desk, you want to make sure that it's your lunch hour. And for those of you who want to call, let me put the number out there now, 850-671-1450. We're going to take a few calls. Definitely, if your calls are concerning education, as the conversation goes, you're going to know that you want to call in. But hey, Emancipation Day is taking place downtown, and I missed all of it.
It is. It's been busy today, but it's good to see the grave cleanings this morning. It's good to see the program that happens at the park. It's good to see even the stuff on the weekend. Shout out to the Williams and the folks out there that do the event every year, the Pembertons, Miss Altamisa's family, and they keep the history lessons going. And I think what is really special about Tallahassee is it's a community of families and families that trace back, way back, right? And, Tallahassee real gangster about that too, right? They ask you who your people is, and they know when you're not, quote unquote, from here, but it's what also makes this community so rich. And in light of the recent passing of the bills as it relates to DEI, it's really refreshing that the community continues to maintain and keep this as a important piece of its identity. So shout out to the Riley House, shout out to all of the history curators in our community on all spectrums. And it's on us to keep the traditions and the knowledge and the wisdom and the history of our communities alive.
Right. Well, listen, I tell you, it is so much taking place. And certainly on Monday, our representative, our congressman, will be in the on Old Bainbridge Road, the cemetery there, remembering veterans. So if you're not doing anything, meet Congressman Lawson out there on Monday. And just so much. And we don't want to dive into everything that's going on because I think our guest today is really going to challenge us and really going to bring some resolve to some of the things that we may be questioning when it comes to education, not just locally, but on a national level.
Yeah, I think on a national level, we're kind of throwing the question out there in terms of where do we go as it relates to our educational systems. And the system we've had for hundreds of years, almost as long as the country has been built. If you take it all the way back from inception schools, from the time of the colonization, all the way up to schools that are new, that are chartered, that are, I think the primary question becomes on the federal level, how do we fund education, through those departments? What does education look like as it pans out into the local districts and on the state level? What are the responsibilities of funding? What are the goals of intersectionality as it relates to liberty, freedom, and education? And how do we make sure that those are reflected in the manner in which we distribute and resource education within our community? So I think it's a great start to this really, really big conversation, right?
Yeah.
And it's not a little conversation. It's a big old.
And I think we're at a place now where whether it's the preschool, whether it's the individuals who are owning their own daycare centers, charter school, private school. I think education now has become a topic because so much legislation has taken place that gives families and individuals freedom, choices. So let's introduce our guest today. I mean, it's been a long time getting her here. Her schedule we had to, ladies and gentlemen, listen, those of you who are listening, we had to book her like 2 months out. It's been a while.
Y'all don't make us seem like she that hard to get. She was trying to get here with us, y'all. She been trying. Okay, we finally made it.
We finally made it happen,
Yes.
and it could not have happened at a better time. So
Yes.
let's introduce to the 12,000 that are tuned in all across this region our guest for today.
Absolutely. Dr. Anika Williams is no stranger to many of us. She's a parent first. She's a community member. She's a soror. She's a colleague of many, specializing in law and is an authority on NIL, but also is just a concerned citizen as it relates to how our systems distribute education opportunities to our children and the intersectionality of parent choice and human development. So I'm really looking forward to continuing. I know you got your doctorate almost at the same time as a really good friend of mine, Dr. Marcus Nicholas.
Yeah.
And both of y'all are just such tremendous dichotomies of expertise in education. So we look forward to hearing and having this conversation in terms of systems thought, because we don't ever think in terms of systems. We always are reactive in regards to outcomes, but it's people that are really thinking very intensely about systems, right? And appropriations. And you're one of those folks. I'm really excited to have the conversation with you today. Glad to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Well, let's dive into this because first of all, your op-ed. Oh my God! Shall we say that?
Which one?
The one that's
Because
shown.
there's two. There's the
a
one, and there's two that come straight to mind, like as of late.
Yeah.
The one
But
as of recently.
The one as of recently. And we're
Uh-huh.
going to talk about that one.
Okay.
But let's talk a little bit about what drew your passion for education. What was it that created this? I don't want to say this hunger, thirst.
Yeah.
What was it?
So I'm a first generation American, and my mom had me when she was 30, knew nothing about the school system. She wanted me, like most parents, to do well in school and get a good job. I keynoted at the FAMU College of Education, and I shared with the graduates that my mom wanted me to like answer phones at a law firm or work as a receptionist. For her as an immigrant, that was like a prestigious job. It's not nannying, it's not, being a custodial worker. It's, sitting behind the desk. And so didn't know much about the school system, but she did know that our local high school had a math proficiency rate of 8%. And she said, that's not going to work for my daughter. And so I told the story to the graduates. We would get up Saturday mornings from Brooklyn, New York, in cold weather. I would get my brothers and sisters dressed. We'd walk 10 blocks down the street to the train station, and they would sit in the hallways of these very elite, very good schools in New York City so that I contested and not have to go to the school with the 8% math proficiency rate. And, I got a very good, high quality education in New York, free public education, and I'm here today. So I believe that all children are capable of being heart surgeons, doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs. And it's a hill that I will die on. So I get a lot of pushback from people saying, well, not everyone can go to college. And I do not believe that. My brother just graduated from dental school. He starts his residency in pediatric dentistry. I have a sister who's a pharmacist, one's a foundation director, and one's a nurse practitioner. And we came from nothing, right? Because we had parents that advocated and pushed and said, we are not going to accept what is given to us in our zone school. And at 11 years old, I was getting on a train station and going into the city to get a quality education. So when I see what's happening in my backyard, it fires me up, because it is not acceptable. And we can get into all of that, but that's a little bit about my background and the educational choices I had. Again, someone who didn't come from money, I didn't have a ton of resources, never had a tutor. And my brothers and sisters, we were all very successful because my mom did not accept what was offered to us in our backyard.
I think that's important to just start with, because it started with parental leadership.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. I said learning does not start in the classroom. It needs to start at the kitchen table.
So what it sounds to me,
Wow.
Pastor, is that I don't know that it's a system. I don't know that. So in the South, it's different than the North, right? Educational systems, in fact, more of the prestigious kind of what we know as traditionally prestigious institutions are in the North, and for a good reason, right? From a historical context to educational systemic continuity, those institutions exist up there.
Are different.
And they're different from where they are in the South, right? So I think there's a couple of things that are into play, particularly in Southern education systems, right? In the North, they were educating you to be professionally occupied differently than what they're training you to be in the South, right? So if we look at the historicity of education systems and appropriations from a regional basis, right? I think what you're saying about Northern systems and how they train their students and Southern systems and how they train students are totally different, right? I think that's something we have to look at. That's a really important history because in the North, it was more tradesmen, more industrially oriented, more professional skills oriented. And down here in the South, it was more labor ready, agricultural, thus the Florida agriculture, mechanical, very astute in training people to be producers, as opposed to in the North where they're educating you to be thinkers and professionals. And I think that historicity carries forward in kind of the way that there's never been a national kind of standardization of education in that way. And that continues to be pervasive. So it's funny because I'm from Detroit, but I was raised in the South and I was partially educated in Detroit, and it was different coming to the South to be educated. And I remember that even in the first grade.
Same.
Right. And so I think there's a historicity here, but in terms of quality, right, and expected outcomes, talk to us today, because you addressed some very key issues in terms of, because how you approach education really impacts determination and destination of students, right? And parental leadership, OMW. So let's talk through some of that from your perspective as a parent and as a auditor of the system. What is it that we expect to get from our systems here in the South, in your opinion?
I believe regardless of whether North, South, East, West, every child deserves an opportunity to reach their maximum potential. Okay. And again, I started working for a nonprofit doing work across the country. And I remember at some point I came back and I said, well, let me peel back the data of what's happening here in Leon County. And I was shocked. I was blown away. So we have about 1,000 African-American third graders in Leon County. Only 54 of those students are considered exemplary readers.
Wait, 54 out of 1,000.
But that's 1,044, give or take. 54 students, according to the last,
54% or
54 students.
No, wait a minute.
I wrote that down because I'm like, I didn't really want to stick a pen and say,
no. Third grade.
But we got it.
Third grade. Okay, come on.
We got 54 students. You look at Oak Ridge, there are 0 students who scored a level 5 in reading last year. When you look at Hartsfield, there was 9, and Fort Brayton was 10. Right. And so when you look across, and so last year what I did, let me go back a little bit to say school grades come out every summer. And I don't think there's anything wrong with celebrating. We've got amazing principals, the Carmen Connors, the Benny Boldens, who are working at our Title I schools who are truly making a difference, right? They're innovative, they're thinking out the box. And I think their schools and any other principal who works in that realm needs to be celebrated. But my concern is when we're seeing these A's and these B's, that's a mask, in my opinion, because when you disaggregate the data and you look at the numbers, that's when you get those numbers. You get that 54 out of 1,000. You get zero children at Oak Ridge Elementary who are considered exemplary readers. And that to me is what the problem is. So I know there are a lot of different opinions in the community, and sometimes my opinions are not very favorable, but it's factual. But it's factual.
Right.
We have 1/3 of students in Leon County do not attend school regularly. So when we talk about this classroom to courtroom pipeline, we can't even say the word classroom because they're not even there.
Well, For those of you who are tuned into the broadcast, I need you to share. I need you to share. I need you to share. You know why? Because I think we're having an experience that is an awakening to the reality of transparency. You said out of 1,000 third graders,
African Americans,
54
scored a level 5.
Scored a level 5. So here is the eye opener. You're wondering why they can determine how many prisons to build at third grade levels as opposed to how many schools to close, because the data reflects it. If 54 kids score a level 5 out of 1,000, tell me what's happening to the 950 that's left.
So let me ask this question, because I know there's levels. There's exemplary, and then there's
So 5 is exemplary, 4 is proficient.
Okay.
3 is kind of in the middle. We're gonna push you through. You may need interventions. So when you look at the percentage, we have over 50% of African American third graders that do not fall in that basic level 3. They're 1s and 2s. That means they're all going to need remediation. They're all going to need interventions. Now, if all of those students have private tutors and mom can pick them up at 3 o'clock and take them here and do all the intervention, all that, great. But we know realistically that's not the reality for most of our kids. And then when you stack that on top of it, you look at a school like Godby, 60% of students at Godby do not attend school regularly. And this is a question I asked the school board. If 60% of students at Godby are not at school, please tell me where are they and what are they doing?
Okay, so let me ask you this. So I'm gonna go back to an original. So 54 African American students. I'd be interested in how many are at the proficient level and how many are at the we need to push you on the court level, right? Not the ones that's the drop it. I'd like to see this broken out because you're right. Third grade is where they make the beds for the correctional system.
Right.
So this is important for us to know, right? The first one, and I don't say this because I want people to be at home to my, oh my goodness, grabbing their pearls, right? I say this because I think that there's a really good point you made on your entry into this conversation, right? In terms of parental involvement. I understand it, and you can tell me this. Who determines literacy for a child? Does the system determine that literacy, or does their exposure combination between home and school? What determines a person that has exemplary, and what determines a person that is in danger, is in the danger?
And so the state defines their levels. Initially, if I'm not mistaken, and don't quote me, initially it was like if you are level 3, you're good to go. Now, what they've done with legislation last year was they pushed it down. So now we're at a level 2. So again, when we look at the school grades, to me, that's just a mass. Because now if we get a bunch of students that are making a level 2, it's not going to look as bad as it did when it was level 3 because we've now dropped the bar. So yes.
But we haven't changed the outcomes.
Correct.
Okay, right. Say that again.
We have not changed the outcome. So we're lowering our standards for our students. So now if you're not in the education system and you don't have all these levels memorized, you're like, oh, my child's doing fine. They have a high 2. We're moving. No, they're not. And so again, as a community advocate, what I wanted to do and what I will do every summer is to peel back those grades and show the numbers and show the data. Because yes, you may feel comfortable with it too, because the system and the state says it's fine. As a parent, my child knows that we're not bringing that home, right? We are raising the bar, we are raising the expectations. And so that's what I believe community members, as community advocates members need to do is like, okay, the state has a definition, but we are going to raise the bar. We're going to unpeel this and see what is happening. Why aren't kids showing up to school in Leon County? And again, I focus on chronic absenteeism across the country. When you look at the state of Florida, there's so many schools that are getting kids back into school. Leon County continues to decline every single year. So what is happening here that we're missing? We're not being intentional. As I said, we're asking for tax dollars. We're asked all of that, but we're not seeing the outcomes that we need to support what you're asking for. We have to raise the bar.
Wow. I know when you said so many questions are running through my mind because one, we're lowering standards. And even when we lower standards, we still going to hit a threshold to whereby these kids are going to fall into
Absolutely.
our judicial system.
Absolutely.
So lowering the standards does nothing for the child, but brings them closer to walking into a detention center, a jail, or a prison. So here we are now, and we're celebrating, but we're celebrating. Oh God, how do I say this? And I mean, I'm trying to be lovable because they beat me up too bad. Yeah.
Well, no. Well, I don't think we're celebrating mediocrity. I think
I
we're
think we are.
celebrating what the system does, which is get people through it. I think the issue that
Okay, but listen to what you said. We're celebrating what the system does, and that's get people through it. But we're doing a disservice to the children who are being celebrated.
Okay, so let me push back a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. This is just how I see it.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at graduations and see families, mostly the kids that are graduating have support systems in place. They've gotten through. So they're on the 3 level that we're talking about.
Mhm.
They've been pushed through with a wheelbarrow and a car.
Yeah.
The ones on the 2s and the 1s, they probably getting certificate of completions, or they're getting some type of, if they're engaged at all, right? Like you said with the absenteeism. I think at some point when a child at 3rd grade has not been ministered to on the level of deficit that they're experiencing, it is hard to get them back
It's
in middle school.
extremely hard. Because the gaps just keep getting bigger and the curriculum is moving. The teacher can't stop for your child. They have to keep moving because there's so much.
Say that again.
The curriculum keeps moving forward, and if your child has gaps, I mean, who's closing the gaps? Do you have the financial resources to do that? Most parents do not. Tutors are very expensive. So the curriculum is moving forward, and your child is essentially trailing behind, and it essentially never really closes. Again, unless you have a lot of time and resources to close that gap, it's very hard to close it. 50% of students in the state of Florida who have the VPK vouchers also do not attend school regularly. So when we're talking about how do we catch these kids early, it starts in pre-K. I mean, 3rd grade has always been like the whole link to the being incarcerated. But again, you can go in your pre-K, you can pull up your pre-K data, and I can probably pull up the pre-K data. I can tell you which kids are going to be behind by the time they're in 1st grade, 3rd grade. I can tell you which ones who are not going to have success in middle school, who are probably not going to graduate from high school. So it starts very, very early.
Wow. So for those of you who are tuned into the broadcast, we are here and we're talking about classroom, the courtroom, talking about how to break the cycle. And I think one of the key things that Dr. Williams, who has said, who is an education advocate, is that what we're seeing is we're seeing the real data when it comes to our children. And we're seeing what gaps they're having to try to close, but they cannot close them because resources are not there to help them.
They're limited. Yeah.
They're limited. Parents, and I want to go back to this because parent leadership was something you made note of when it came to your family and the success that your brothers and sisters are now experiencing through parenting and through being pushed for education. We're dealing now with a generation where parents are now, how do I say this? I really don't want to say it the way I want to say it.
I think you need to say it the way you need to say it.
We're dealing with a generation now where parents are cool with their children. There's no real parenting. So we're in a generation where the child takes on the more dictative role to the parent, what they're going to do, what they're not going to do. And systems have given them that kind of power.
And when you say giving them the power,
well, they know that one, if you say something to me that I don't like, I can dial Child Protective Services. 2, if I feel like you invaded my space, I can call the police. So parenting now has taken on a different form. And now you have to wonder, who is the parent? Because there is a fear for a parent to do to their children what my mama or my grandmother.
I was gonna say, do you remember like the
Do
teacher
you
say,
remember?
I'm calling home and you're breaking down in tears?
Yes.
These kids would say, call. My mom knows how I act.
I was talking with a principal on last evening, and she said to me that the child told her, "Oh, my mama see you calling. She not gonna answer." And she was asking, because we were talking about the conversation. So we got a situation where there's a gap between the parent and the child. The child knows that, hey, I can do whatever I want to do. My mom's not interested. That's why we're seeing what we're seeing at third grade level.
There has definitely been a culture shift, right? I don't know if it's the pandemic. I mean, again, I focus exclusively on student attendance, right? But even we understand that poverty is a reason why kids sometimes can't show up to school. But a lot of us grew up with nothing, and we went to school every single day.
But it was different then.
On time.
But it was different then.
We used to have perfect attendance awards. Now you can't. It's not, they move away from that because it's it makes parents feel a certain kind of way. There's been a culture shift, and I think it has to be acknowledged. If the parents today are not the parents that we had growing up.
So basically, what you're saying is the standards have shifted.
Absolutely.
And so maybe let me just throwing this out here, because the cultural standards have shifted. The system is dealing with standards that have shifted. And they're dealing with having to mediate and mitigate cultural standards that have shifted. And I think that this is a real conversation because at the end of the day, what we want is outcomes for kids.
Absolutely.
Right? But we also want to understand that, we got school choice, but we don't have parental choice. The kids can't choose their mom and daddy. They can't choose, they don't have that power. They gotta work with the hand they dealt.
Right.
And sometimes, particularly with my heart towards the foster care system, sometimes they being dealt nothing. I mean, they're being dealt trauma upon trauma, and the parents are just not there. And the statistics, unfortunately, in our community have shifted, right? Where now you don't have the village concept with the grandmother that's a grandmother and can get the child straight, right? And they're producing children, child after child, with those instabilities that matriculate into the systemic calculations. That this is troubling. I don't think that I hope people are listening and understanding that this is troubling. Why is this troubling? Because you're talking about the economic trajectory
of your family, your generation.
And if you're saying only 54 that look like me and you are at an exemplary level.
Out of 1,000.
Out of 1,000.
And school grades don't tell that story.
They don't tell that story. But so let me talk about school grades when we get a moment. But I want to sit here, right? Because this ain't about performance-based metrics, right? This is about how are we determining the trajectory of human beings, of development, right? And I can't put all that on the system. I got to figure out, okay, first of all, is the system teaching them what they need to learn? That's the first thing. And that negates standards. That's just, is there opportunity to learn what needs to be learned? The second thing is, if there's opportunity that needs to be learned, what are the partnerships to ensure that comprehension is getting through to the next, to the level that we can say they have become proficient.
Right.
Maybe not exemplary.
Let's get
proficient, right? But proficient. Let's get to proficiency. I can look at something and read it, right?
Right.
If we're saying that the majority ain't even at a proficiency where they can comprehend what they're reading, that is troubling.
It is. It's I call it educational malpractice, whether it's on the parent or on the school system. And these days you can't, to call a parent out is offensive, right? You can't speak out, and so everybody tiptoes and dances around it. But we need leaders who can knock on your door and call that phone number and have a heart-to-heart with you. So I think it's also, how are our schools building the capacity of parents to support their children at home? And sometimes we don't really see that post-COVID. Remember back in the day when we used to get dropped off at school, our parents would come in the cafeteria and sit with us. You can't do that anymore in Leon County schools. When I dropped my kindergartner off first day of school, and that's my baby, I had to drop him at a gate, and it's do not cross this. We'll see you at 3 o'clock. And that's what I am seeing in the public school system that I'm saying. That's why parents are opting out, right? So how can we reverse those trends and bring our families back into the school? I have one in public, one in private. I have a girlfriend who goes and stuff folders at our local public school, and she sits in the hallway. When we were in school, those parents came in the classroom, right? They build that relationship with that teacher. If you keep pushing parents out, how do you expect to, again, build their capacity? How do you get a parent who's a young mom who's like, oh, kindergarten, they can miss a day or two. It's what they're learning is not important. They don't know what's going on in the classroom. You send home a worksheet on Friday. They don't understand the importance of them showing up to school every day because you have ousted parents. So one of the things I talked about in the op-ed yesterday was this concept of distrust. It's always been in our communities. Now you're seeing it on the north side, and those parents are upset about it. So the district has to stop pushing parents out. There needs to be an evaluation of school-based policies that are not friendly. I'll give you another example. I have a kid at a private school. When I go have lunch with my first grader, I sit on the lunch bench with him and his classmates, and Ivan's mom, can you open my milk? And let me tell you what I did today. And everybody's got my attention. My person doesn't even get that attention. When I go to my son's public school, there's a sign that says you can only sit with your child, and it has to be on the stage away from everyone else. So what that tells me is you don't want me there, right? So again, when we talk about building this bridge between getting parents to understand this is what's happening, this is what's important, we need you to show up. It starts with those really small policies that again, post-COVID, parents are being pushed out. So that's a bridge, I think, that needs to be mended. That's what I said, we need to build trust, and we need to take down that barrier and welcome parents back into school so they can really understand and see what's happening within the school walls.
Let me ask you this. With all the research that you do and have done, how is it in other counties, other cities?
There are some districts in Florida, Palm Beach is a good example, that they're very intentional about building trust and relationships with parents, right? All of this stuff is about relationships. Again, if you have a principal who can knock on a door and have a heart-to-heart with the mom and that person's not offended, you can make gains, right? So there are many districts, not as much as in other states, that are working to address chronic absenteeism, who are very intentional, who are looking at outcomes, who are reporting this data out to the public. And I don't see that as much here, right? There is a lack of transparency that we're seeing with Leon County schools. You know, the Facebook thing, when they live stream the school board meetings, you can't even comment and interact with your community members about things that are coming up, right? So there's this lack of transparency, this lack of trust that, again, I think we need to see restored to make the gains that we need to see with our students.
Well, let me say this. One of the Facebook audience says pre-K is one of the greatest investments a community can make. What's your thoughts on that?
Agree, absolutely. Every child needs at least 2 solid years of pre-K, and they need to show up for kindergarten. And I'm not saying show up here and there. I need that child in school every single day. Because again, you ask an average parent, oh, what are the kids learning in pre-K? They'll say, oh, they're playing, and they need to show up for 2 consistent years, and we need them every day in school and kindergarten. I don't hear that message from our community leaders. So yes, pre-K is important. It's the foundation, and again, that's usually where students start falling behind.
So I think pre-K as a concept is a relatively new systemized kind of concept, maybe last 30 years, the past 40
And I'll say it
years.
is expensive.
And it was expensive before they started spending district money on schools, because they recognize the importance of little Lily coming and learning that her name ain't Lily, it's actually Leanne.
Yeah.
I think it's such a loaded conversation, and it's so complex. But I want to go back to this conversation about parental engagement, systems that foster parental alignment within districts, within schools, because we know in Leon County, a lot of the atmospheres in schools are facilitated by the principal in place, right? They have a lot of control over how they cultivate environment. Some schools do great at parental engagement, parental environment building, making sure that PTOs are, given agency in their SACs are given agency to author improvements and change within the construct. So I think the first real point that you're making is that folks need an ecosystem understanding, and that's going to be within any context, whether it be private or public school. There's an ecosystem issue, right? Because where are we losing the parents? We're losing the parents because they don't know how to engage in the ecosystem. And some of these first generation parents that have kids, and I ain't saying some of them lazy.
Gotta call it how it is. Please.
Listen, grannies and grandpas out there, your niece done said it, all right? I done said what y'all done said, all right? And don't come for me in my inbox, all right?
It's true.
I'm just going to reiterate
that.
Listen, when she said educational negligence, I got to thinking about back when we were in school and you didn't come to school. What happened when you didn't come to school? They called the what?
Yeah,
police. You were truant.
That's right.
You were.
In Fort Lauderdale, if you were skipping school, and I'm a net mom, there was a time or two when you saw the police, you had to hide because they would pick you up and they would take you down to the station. I don't think they do that anymore. But anyways, back on.
Listen, it's a lot of intersections in this thing, right? Because they understood that you were developing citizens, and non-attendance in school equated to lawlessness and development, right? And so kids who didn't go to school were kids who were doing things they had no business doing because they weren't in school, right? But I think going back to that system and looking at the system we have now with the challenges in parental distribution that these kids face, they come to school with so much, with so many needs. And the public system has to address those while providing some type of standardization. And then you enter in school choice where they get to go to a school that now they can step up for students to pay for. And they in a class of 15, but that school can't handle little Shay who is a renegade. They got to send her back to public school because Shay ain't seen nothing but fighting in her house. So she come to school, fight the churn, and the private school don't have the capacity to deal with a lawless child. So it's a dichotomy of issues that I think needs to have an ecosystem response to, not a reaction. And I want to hear from leaders who are looking at this data. How do you do that? Where are the reconciliations here? Because again, let's go back. 54?
Yeah. And I really think, Dr. Williams, I really think that our conversation had so many layers to it.
Yes.
But when you open up, so you got to figure out when can you, we just maybe need to get you an educational segment once a month. Because we had so many layers to talk about, but when you open up with 54 out of 1,000, it really made the statement that they start building prisons at third grade more real. It made the experience that I had on yesterday sitting in that juvenile court where it was packed, where I saw young ladies with their hair yellow, where I saw they have pink, 14, 13. And I'm sitting there saying, Mom, is this okay?
Yeah.
And when I heard a mother say, if there was somewhere for my child to be while I work 2 jobs and he's already got felonies and now he's showing up with more, all because I can't watch him and he's not going to stay in the house because it's not a jail. So he's going to get out in the street, and in the street, he's going to find himself entangled into more. So I just, these numbers that you're seeing now convinces me even more, Christine.
Well, let me go back to that. Okay, you bring up a real good point. How many brothers you got?
Well, I have 1 brother, 3 sisters.
1 brother and 3 sisters, and your mom worked.
Yes, both my parents.
Both your parents worked. Both
Both.
worked.
Yes.
Okay.
And so there was some boundaries there that he did not transgress.
Right.
And he was able to stay focused because he had 2 working parents that was on and a mama that was on them,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So I need to say this
Say this.
with as much grace as possible.
No grace. No grace.
No grace.
With as
No
much-
grace.
No, I want to grace because I realize that these things are they are cycles. We are living out
And that's what I'm talking about. How to break
right?
this cycle.
How to break cycle, and I think we have to recognize the cycle.
Okay, let's
We have to stop putting kid gloves on. And I'm gonna say this, and it's gonna sound real
Say it.
crazy. It's gonna sound crazy, but we gotta stop putting.
I got
because-
people want to call in too.
Yeah, call on in because y'all got something to say
Okay,
too.
stick a pin. For those of you who want to call in, we're going to take callers 850-671-1450. So many of y'all been saying, hey, I need to call y'all. So give us a call. And I
told
think
you.
Dr. Williams she didn't let us go far, but go ahead. Let's come on
Listen,
back.
this
Come
ain't
on
the
back.
right fest. We want to hear solutions, y'all. Because listen, the single mothers are doing the best they can. The best they can. But we gotta look at the outcomes. These outcomes, and I want to see the proficiency, and I want to see all the levels, right? 'Cause I want
I'll
to
send
see.
it to you.
Okay, I want to see all that.
And it
I think
ain't
it's
pretty,
important to. Good. It's important to let the facts be the facts,
Yeah.
right? And stop trying to sugarcoat everything, thinking that it makes us look crazy.
Mm-hmm.
No, when you go to the doctor and you get cut open and they see stuff, this is good. They can see what's going on with you and then they can address it.
Right.
Right now, we're being cut wide open.
And we don't know we're being cut.
Well,
We don't even feel the cutting
Mm.
because it's layered with stuff that looks like we're okay.
and the other people. Part of this is that you got people that say they can explain this, right? And the explanation makes sense. Am I okay?
Yeah.
The explanation makes sense, but at the same token, the outcomes are the kids you see
Right.
sitting in the
Right.
seats, and so that's where I'm at right now. You know where is the disconnect? Obviously, this young man whose mama showed up for court, did she show up for school?
Ouch.
Okay, I'm just saying. I'm just saying you.
Yeah.
I don't mean to sound like this because again, I know that parents do the best they can. They parlay supervision of their kids to assist them during the day. But if there is a determination that this child has got some missing stuff
Mm-hmm.
and they in the system, where is the intervention and the address? You know, I got to get off my job. I got to come in. I know that's something.
That's part of it.
That's something.
But then here, okay, go ahead. I want you to finish.
But they at the court. They showing up for them at the court. They showing up for them at canteen. They showing up for them at the window. But where can we show up for them to intervene to keep them from the canteen and to keep them from the window and to keep them from the court? Is that a fair assessment of the conversation we're trying to figure
Well,
out?
I think that's a fair assessment, and I'll be glad to get some of your input on this because we're talking about classroom to courtroom, and really, you laid the foundation by giving us those alarming numbers. But going to juvenile courts, visiting them for the last 10 years straight, seeing what I'm seeing. Mothers are not there. It's grandmother. It's the grandparents that are in these rooms that's showing up. It's the grandparents that's trying to take care of the 3 children that the mother has gotten on drugs and the father is incarcerated. So it's the grandparents that's sitting in these seats trying to do the best they can. So at the end of the day, when Johnny shows up at school, and we're not telling teachers to be babysitters, but at least identify
Right.
something has to be going on.
Well,
Okay.
the district has to put in systems and to catch that, right? It's more than especially when our low income kids go to school, it's more than making the grade, right? It's
Yeah.
meals, it's consistency, it's routine, it's emotional intelligence, like,
Mhm.
right? And sometimes parents in those situations cannot teach a child, like, when you're angry, this is what you do with those emotions.
Right.
It's a responsibility of, everyone has to play a role,
Okay.
parents, but there's a responsibility of the school district to put in systems to catch this. And if we're just pushing kids through the pipeline, if we're hiding behind school grades, it will never be addressed and we'll just continue the cycle.
Okay, so Title I schools have a Title I advisory council, Title I programs, Title I funding. That I have personally seen move forward in ways administered particular to schools. And the involvement of parents and some were great.
Mhm.
Magnificent work at Hartsfield when Dr. Martha Flanagan was there.
Shout out to Dr. Flanagan.
Oh my
She's
goodness.
my choir member.
Oh my goodness. Dr. Flanagan had it on fire at Hartsfield with parent engagement. And we saw the results of that, right? Even if it didn't move the needle of the grade, it moved the climate of the school. Okay, let's have a real conversation. Even if it didn't move the needle of the grade,
Right.
it moved the climate of the school, right?
Which is the foundation.
Yeah, and that's
of
key.
grades.
Okay.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I want to say that's key because listen to what you said. That moved the climate. It changed first of all, it created an opportunity for a parent to become more engaged.
Right.
And
Right.
guess what? Most times that parent
Right.
is really reluctant to
Right.
tell that child that I really don't know how to help you with this.
Mm.
But the engagement of it now
Right.
creates a different atmosphere for that school and for that family and for that child.
It goes back again to the policies that's in place. That
Yes.
A lot of our schools are not friendly to make that happen anymore. It's gone. I have friends who are attorneys and doctors, and they're zoned for the best public schools in Leon County, and they don't send their kids there. They drive out to the charter schools. They take them to the private schools because the environments that we're seeing, I'm gonna call it how it is, and schools are not open and friendly to parents. So if we want to bridge that gap and get parents in to understand and talk about, hey, we need you to read 15 minutes a day, you have to develop a rapport
Yes.
with those parents, and the policies just do not reflect that. Full stop.
So, do we have a call that came in?
Yeah,
Okay.
hold on. Yeah, so listen, for those of you who are ready to call in,
This is good.
this number, the number to call is 850-671-1450. And basically, you are here with the Conscious Chick. You're here with Dr. Williams, who's an education advocate.
Mhm.
And one of the things that she has said that has really moved us, turn it up so we can get,
Mhm.
that has really moved us to the level that we're on is 1,000 third graders.
African American third graders.
African American.
And only 54.
All right, the level.
are-
What? Okay. So right now, good afternoon, caller. You're on the air. Good afternoon, caller. You're on the air. Okay.
Here.
Is it-
Good.
Are they on?
Oh, they're trying to get connected. So.
Okay.
Well, so let's continue that because
Okay.
I think, Christique, you made a very valid point when you talked about that school, that principal, and that climate. Do you see with that climate changing, do you see that that kid now has a potential
Right.
of becoming a student that takes learning more serious?
Absolutely, but most importantly, you have a parent that believes in the system.
Wow.
And how do you get there?
How do you get to that?
How do you get
How do you
there?
get to that? How do you get to parents?
Okay, good afternoon, caller. You're on the air.
Hey, Cat Smith here. Love what you're doing, Overseer James. I'm loving this conversation right here.
Okay, great. Well, go ahead on and chime in because I know you're doing something amazing over in Gadsden with the chamber and you're partnering with the county when it comes to our children. What's your point? We need to hear you.
Real quick, of course, did school board. I worked 10 years with Tallahassee Community College with grant funding for Gadsden County, dealing with public schools. This is what I found out in a brief moment. We have to deal with origins, right? How do single parents become single parents? It's from poor mate selection choices.
Wow.
So I think we're picking up at a place that's actually midstream. If we can start dealing with the fact of the importance of us teaching mate selection in our communities, in our churches, in our schools, prior to these students getting to the age where their hormones speak louder than school instruction. Number two is we got to deal with the fact that the school system is only a sub-part of our societal system. And I believe that we're dealing with a societal system that is designed to produce a particular product. And so when we look at the African American students, then we have to ask what product is this system designed to produce. So I think we need to start reconfiguring and really thinking about systematic reform and what that looks like. And then last but not least, as it pertains to mate selection, that's vital in the African American community, right? That's an issue because of what we allow our children to see, et cetera. So what we're looking at, I know it's a lot of parts. I agree with you. I think this is a weekly segment that should be added to what you do. But I think what needs to happen is not only more of these communications and conversations, but the question is, who can get to Shay Shay's mom's house that she'll open the door for, and then have these real conversations, and not just to have the conversation, but to partner with them with the resources that are needed in order to start transforming not only the parents' mind, but also let's introduce some things that the school system can't teach to little Shay Shay before she gets old enough to make these same generational mistakes and choices.
Wow.
God bless you.
Thank you so much for that input. And as he was talking, and I'm gonna let you all chime in, but as he was talking, this conversation is so timely. I'm gonna tell you why it's timely. One, we're coming to the end of the school year, and only God could orchestrate this. This conversation is awakening the minds and hearts of people. I got people who are commenting saying this is needed. So it's timely, and we cannot lose what is happening in this moment if we don't figure out how we keep education empowerment as a part of what we're doing on the show. Okay, I just had to throw that in.
So what he's talking about is we're talking about raising expectations. And yes, school is a small microcosm of what's happening. We've got social media, TikTok, but my kids spend more time at school than they do up with me, right? And so again, it's about raising the expectations. This is what we expect from school principals. This is what we expect from our superintendent. We need to raise and change what those expectations are. Again, I'm going to shout out Carmen Connor. Carmen lives in that area. She walks her kids to their homes, right? There was a Leadership Tallahassee luncheon, and she talked about, she was like on a phone call or something, and she said, well, I gotta go because I gotta walk my babies to home, right? Someone like her can have that conversation with the parent, those hard, difficult conversations. And so who are we putting into leadership? We need to question everything. We need to raise the bar. Our kids deserve more, and they deserve better.
What I love about exceptional leaders like Carmen Connors and like Dr. Rhonda Flanagan across the spectrum is that, I think that schools take on the context of the communities that they're serving. And I think that those expectations have to be shaped by the experiential, by the traditional, as he said, by the societal.
Somebody's calling.
Oh,
Good afternoon, caller. You're there. Hey, how are you?
Sydney Brown.
Hey, Miss Sydney.
Hey, I am so thrilled at this conversation. As a former educator and a former prosecutor in that same juvenile court that Greg was talking about earlier, this is so needed. And we often say, colloquially, that it takes a village. But the village has not stepped up.
Nope.
Hey.
Yeah, I think the village has not been informed. I think what we're being now is informed.
So you don't think the village has been informed?
No, they're not literate on this stuff we're talking about. See, and the issue with the community is that we've leaned so much on a certain segment of our community knowing these things and handling it for us. Now it's in our backyard, and we gotta handle it. We've gotta be literate on it. We've gotta know it.
So let me ask you this.
We have turned our children over to the school like it's their responsibility.
You better say it.
Okay, they're just
Only.
a method, a means to an end, but it's not all on them. It still remains with us. It's our responsibility. And I remember when Oprah Winfrey told her story, I think the first time she got a really major award Her dad came and stood right next to her,
Mm.
and he didn't say a word. He looked like he was at military, a military posture, and he stood next to her. But if you remember her story, her dad took her from her mother. I don't know if it was how it happened, whether it was by agreement or whatever. And he would literally take her to school every day, and he would pick her up. And she was embarrassed. She was humiliated. All of those people seeing her, her friends seeing her, he didn't care. He was literally fighting for her life.
Mm.
And that impressed me, and I think it brought me to tears at the time. When we have these kids and we see these parents struggling, they're not listening to these teachers. It's insane almost for us to think that they can go to school every day and it's going to make a difference. But there are people in our community that these kids will listen to. I know because I was one of them. I dropped out of school in the 9th grade.
Mm.
And there was people that could speak into my life. So I was able to get my GED and pick my life up and keep on going. We need those people.
Mm.
We need those people that when they go into that juvenile court and they get suspended and they get expelled from the school system, where are they going to go? That's what the mother's talking about. I got to go to work.
Yeah.
She said, I can't stay home and watch it. They have other children, right? So who's going to step in and help? And I really fully agree with the gentleman that spoke earlier about how we did it at the beginning. When a doctor was talking about it's 2 years of DPK, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I know that's where the foundation is. I didn't get it until I went in 8th grade. And you wouldn't believe how many that would come to me in 9th grade that had those learning gaps that they should have been covered in the 3rd grade, 4th grade.
Mm.
So, but is it all a loss? Absolutely not. What we need, we gotta have the people that's gonna step up and is serious about it and take our children back and save their lives. We
Wow.
need that group of people that, as she was saying, that will go to the home and say, hey, listen, this, what's going on? How can we help you?
Mm.
You about to lose your child.
Hmm.
It's heartening to see a 15-year-old be charged as an adult.
Yes.
So I caught up with a whole bunch of people shooting and
Caught up.
And that 15-year-old, he don't even understand what is going on because there's no brain development to know that 10 years from now, you're going to recognize, wow, what I was doing.
and that's what they do.
Wow. Well, listen, I tell you, you have been.
Thank you, Miss
Oh,
Cindy.
wow.
I want to go back to my original, before we got to close out. So I know it's look, this ain't the end. We just can't be here all afternoon.
We just got started. I
Just got
mean,
crunk up. I want to say this.
say it.
We need to know what's wrong so we can advocate for what's right.
Wait, we need to know what's wrong.
So we can
can advocate.
advocate for what's right.
Ooh, that's
The
good.
system produces what the system produces.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different things. The question is, with all of these things that come at our students, why we even got 54
Mm-hmm.
that are exemplary?
Out of 1,000.
No, but I'm saying, but why do we have any?
Mm-hmm.
Why do we have any? That's the question. What is the mix that gets us to exemplary and proficient? And who's telling us what that mix is?
Yeah.
So we can identify our role in ensuring that our children reach the level that we're investing in them reaching. Because I just can't give it to the schools. That's a system.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a system that's going to produce based upon the inputs that we put in. And you can't get something out, you trade stocks. You can't get something out that you don't put in. And that's a hard thing to say to a people who's used to advocating for systems and its role of creating equity. But I'm telling you, we are at a critical moment here as a community where we have got to understand in a deep way, he can't get out. Well, we don't put in.
Wow. Well, listen, I tell you, for those of you who are tuned into this broadcast, really, we're talking about classroom, the courtroom, and basically Dr. Williams, who's an education advocate and who understands research on where we are, laid a beautiful foundation for us to look at just here in our own county with 1,000 third graders, and 54 out of that 1,000 is at a level of what we would call,
For African American.
oh, please put that in there.
Yes.
54, not just 54 students, but 54 African American
Yes.
students out of
1,000.
1,000.
Okay.
Can you tell us, can you say that for all of my listeners one more time so I can make closing remarks and really
Yes.
bring this home?
So out of the 1,000 African American third graders that we have that's being educated in Leon County Public Schools, only 54 scored a level 5.
And what does that level 5 mean?
Level 5 means that they are exemplary, that they will not need supports in the next year moving forward, and they can essentially self-guide them way through school, through education, through the curriculum. Everyone else, minus your 4s, your 1, 2s, and 3s are going to need interventions, and they're going to need their handhold, and they need to be there every day. But our 5s are thriving and doing well, and
it's
only
only
have
54.
It's only 54. And again, the school, I'm not calling out any school leaders, anyone in particular, but I said at Oak Ridge last year there were 0.
Wow. So here it is, and we got to wrap this up. We're talking about classroom, the courtroom. Here is the reason why. And I have a different approach. My conscious chick has a different view, and Dr. Williams has all the data.
That's a good combination.
That's a good combination. She has all of the data to let us know that, hey, here's the data. Do with it what you will, but this is it. But I just believe that we as, oh God, I'm probably going to lose some pastor friends when I say this, but it's okay. We as faith leaders, the Black church, is the beacon light to our community. And we just can't show up and shout and dance and do all of that on Sunday and not take an active role in our community Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We have to be engaged if we're really going to change the culture of the community.
Amen.
And our business leaders, we need them too. Business leaders, faith leaders, it takes a village.
It takes a village, but the biggest part of the village will show up at the church.
A church on Sunday.
That's where the masses will show up. And we got to get more actively engaged. And for those people who are engaged, if that's not your thing, support them in their thing. If your thing is feeding people, then let's support you in that. But if someone else's thing is trying to keep these kids out of jail and prison because they've been there, okay, let's stop.
Or you can write a check.
Or you can write a check.
Write that check.
As a matter of fact, closing comments when we
Well, I
overdue.
want to just close with historic context regarding churches. Churches were the first schools. For many
Absolutely.
people in our community. In
They
fact, many of them-
educated us.
They were the
That's
ones that
true.
educated those, but they were founded by the community. There were normal schools that normalized or standardized educational approaches to
Oh my
reach
God.
outcomes.
Somebody, wait. Somebody said, did you say 54 children or 54%? Could you please?
54 African American third graders are exemplary in reading. The others are not there yet. So potentially we got 54 lawyers, doctors, brain surgeons, but what are we going to do with the other kids?
What we
And
gonna
so
do with the
listen,
900?
and this doesn't mean that if they're proficient, they can't be all in.
Right.
What we're
they're
talking
right,
about, I
right,
want to make sure that the conversation is about standards,
right.
raising standards. So I think it's appropriate on Emancipation Day
Oh my
to
God.
talk about the historicity of
Another hour.
education.
Yay, glory.
To talk about the role of churches, to
Mhm.
talk about the historicity of engagement of churches
Somebody
in
said
pursuit.
54 out of 1,000.
Mhm.
Yes.
Oh, I'm glad they finally
It's
And
registered.
So I think it would be appropriate to look at the history. Shout out to Dr. Altamis Barnes,
Yeah.
my Rams logo.
And what's the
And
total?
in all of the history that she gives to the community context. But we need to revive some of that history. We need to revise some of that normalization. And we need to have an approach on how we address this data moving forward.
Well, listen, somebody wanted to know what's the total of the others.
We don't have that yet.
We
gonna
don't
get
have it.
But it's got, if it's 54 out of 1,000,
Mhm.
there are 940 other kids at a level 1, 2, or 3.
Oh
Or
no,
4.
they
Or
fall into
4,
proficient.
Yeah.
or-
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have some good 4s. I think
Yeah.
I think it was like 156. Don't quote me, but everyone else, again, out of the 1,000, are not
Yeah.
where we want them to be.
Well, listen, it's been an amazing conversation. And listen, we had so many, I got to say this because we didn't even get to talk about the tax increase. and-
We did it.
So
That's on the next show.
yeah, that's okay. And listen, if you all want to make some comments in inbox, hey, listen, it's Dr. Williams who laid that out that just had us on pause.
And why? Because third grade is where they determine.
It's the critical point.
Yeah.
That's when they determine how many heads in
Going
prison
in
beds
prison beds.
they gonna speculate.
Yeah.
That's right.
And third grade is when they determine how many schools they're going to close and how many prisons they're going to build. So they can make the projection that in 2026, 54 out of 1,000. So therefore, let's just say hypothetically, 200 is going to end up in a maximum security penitentiary because they're not going to be educated. They're going to become a part of the street culture. They're going to
Yeah.
think about robbing, stealing, killing.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead on and build a small prison here because this is where they're going to show up at. Sad day. We got to wake up. Until next week, once again, Dr. Williams, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
And certainly, those of you remember, I'm going to be advocating. I'm looking for 300 partners. I'm starting the school, whether you like it or not, whether you think it's needed or not, whether you think it's dividing the classroom. It really doesn't matter because I sit in the courtrooms every day. And today should have moved you to say, we got to do something.
Something different.
Amen.
Until next week,
Until next week.
the conscious chick.
We'll
Thank
see
you
y'all
again for
later.
joining me.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Hey guys, listen. Hey man, it has been an amazing show, and we got to go. But we thank all of y'all for joining us, and certainly we're going to have Dr. Williams back. We're going to have to figure out how to create her segment. I don't know how we're going to do it, but you better get ready. All right. Until next week, y'all be blessed.
The Western Florida jurisdiction of Church of God